V8 engine and an electric motor in the front. The V8 powers the rear wheels with 495 horsepower, and the electric motor powers the front wheels with 160 horsepower for a total of 655 horsepower.
You need that 35.
Yes, you do. It has a stealth mode, so the police can't see it.
Fun getting into that.
Well, actually, fully electric up to 45 miles an hour, and its base price is $104,295. Everybody rush out and buy one.
Standard, 106.
Yeah, well, that's the base price. Then the dealership has doubles that, so it's gonna be $200,000 car.
After it lasts about 4 years, it cost you $60,000 for a new battery.
People have searched for the fountain of youth for years. Scientists at Harvard University might have discovered the secret to reverse aging. So this interests all of us in here. A recent study published in the journal found that by making DNA repairs on mice, scientists were able to drive age forward and backward, thus manipulating the age process. It's taken 13 years to get to that point, so I don't know that any of us will benefit from that. And Brenda, this might interest you wherever you are. Birders from far away as Wisconsin traveled to central Kentucky last week in hopes of seeing a rare pink-footed goose. Did you go down to look for that? There. They didn't find it. Not exactly where it's supposed to be. They found it somewhere else. So. So this one man is in trouble with the law after he allegedly raised a hatchet towards a convenience store clerk who tried to stop him from stealing donuts. Jeez. And there were 2 people in Florida who were arrested after one of them made a 911 call to get help moving the belongings from the house that they were burglarizing. When talking to the deputies, the female suspect told them he had called 911 for the purpose of having law enforcement help them move their belongings from the house they were burglarizing. They also wanted to ride to the airport so they could spend the weekend in New York. They keep going back to some of these stupid laws that are out there. Some will make me laugh, some will just make me wonder. In Alabama, it's illegal to drive blindfolded. And Arkansas, it's illegal to pronounce Arkansas the wrong way. You can't call it Arkansas. In California, it's illegal to eat a frog that is died during the frog jumping contest. In Colorado, it's illegal to ride a horse drunk. I don't know if you're drunk with a horse, you're drunk. And the pickle must bounce. And nowhere it's illegal for drive-in theaters to show R-rated movies. In Hawaii, I think this is in every state, it's illegal for police to have sex with prostitutes during work. In Indiana, it's illegal to kiss someone if you have a mustache. In Kansas, if 2 trains meet on a track, neither shall pass until the other has. If you're figuring that one out, please let me know what that means. In Michigan, it's illegal to park in front of a Dunkin' Donuts. That's reserved for police cars. In Michigan, it's illegal for a woman to cut her own hair without her husband's permission. And in Mississippi, it's illegal to swear in public. There was a soldier standing there, and an officer walked up and said, "Soldier, do you have change for $1?" Soldier said, "Sure, buddy." The officer said, "That's no way to address an officer. Now let's try it again. Do you have change for $1?" "No, sir." Well, his wife was lying in bed the other night when he noticed she had bought a new book entitled "What 20 Million American Men or Women Want Most." He grabbed the book out of her hands and started hunting through the pages. His wife was a little annoyed. Hey, what do you think you're doing? He calmly replied, I just wanted to see if they spelled my name right. Wow. He didn't sleep well that night. Johnny's teacher was preparing students for the upcoming spelling bee when she asked Johnny to spell straight. Little Johnny says Straight. Teacher says, correct. What does it mean? Little Johnny said, without ginger ale. And this is a big photos from my mother. I noticed the man next to me juggling 3 boxes of candy and a large bouquet. What did you do wrong? I said with a laugh. He mumbled, I get married. There were 3 drinks who were walking down the street when one came upon a pilot maneuver where they stopped. The first drunkard, upon observation of the maneuver, said to the others, looks like it. The second, bending over and sniffing it, the other said to the other 2, smells like it. The third, sticking his finger in it, said, feels like it. Good thing we didn't step in it. Dear alcohol, we had a deal you would make me prettier, funnier, and a better dancer. I just saw the video from the company Christmas party. We need to talk. It's clean to the computer, nothing to do with intelligence. I go to sleep if I'm left unattended for 15 minutes. There was a blonde went to a flight school insisting she wanted to learn to fly that day. As all the airplanes were currently in use, the owner agreed to instruct her on how to pilot a helicopter solo by radio. He took her out, showed her how to start it, and gave her the basics and sent her on her way. After she climbed 1,000 feet, she radioed, I'm doing great. The view is beautiful, and I'm starting to get the hang of this. After 2,000 feet, she radioed again, saying how easy it is becoming to fly. The instructor watched her climb to 3,000 feet and was beginning to worry she hadn't radioed in. A few minutes later, he watched in horror as she crashed about a half a mile away. He ran over, pulled her from the wreckage, and asked what happened. She said, I don't know. Everything was going fine, but as I got higher, it started to get cold. I can't remember anything after I turned that big fan off. And sometimes I like to leave you guys with a couple of positive things. It says it always seems impossible until it's done. And then Zig Ziglar was one of my favorites. One of his sayings was, FEAR has 2 meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. Today's client. If you took a cover break this week, that's $1. If you ever watched The Lone Ranger, that's $1. If you've driven, well, we need money. If you've ever driven 100,000 before, that's $1. If you've ever been blindfolded, that's $1. And if you were late today, that's $2. Ooh, Brandon, did that about it?
That was
I'm happy about that. Stephen Brown has been here for 2 weeks in a row now.
You lost, sir. My camera had 2 in a row, but it stopped it, so he did not make 3. So one more week and you beat Mike. Who else? Oh, boy, 20 lately.
I have a happy 20. For 20 years.
Here. And you went out, yes, sir?
What was 20 last year? Oh, nice. Last year with the Beavercreek Youth Council, we did for the first time a mock interview at a session with the high school students. Mainly focusing on the juniors and seniors, getting them ready for their first jobs or college applications. The younger students, just give them tips and tricks of how to communicate with people. This year we are doing it again starting next month. I know a couple people in the room helped with the mock interviews, so if anyone's interested in helping out, reach out to me. It'll be on a Sunday afternoon. It was a great turnout, a great response, and a lot of students thoroughly enjoyed being able to not only prep for interviews, but learn how to talk to people, look people in the eyes, and not be bashful and shy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, I've got two. We finished our siding project. I won't talk about how much it costs, but our son's room does not get cold at night. The first time in 4 years, so it's nice to have a fully woodpecker proof house. So we are excited. I feel bad we did have to evict the one that lived under our bedroom window, but we have plenty of trees for him. And two, my wife got me a bow tie yesterday, so at age 33, I learned how to tie a bow tie. I won't tell you how early I had to wake up this morning to get to work on time and get the bow tie tied, but it's tied. Please don't touch it. You would miss stuff, and I don't have time to redo it, so you learn new skills as you get older, you can't. Okay, anyone else? Last chance, Jenny Griffin, where you at?
What's up? So last weekend, we went to Strongsville with the hockey team. Their first game was a rough one, however, they still finished a strong third, so. Pretty impressive hockey, and I am super happy that we have the referees that we have here, because the ones there didn't call anything. Pretty rough games, pretty rough game.
Okay, take draw time. Number 324-0-2-1.
Was it 3-2-4?
Yeah, wow.
Is that possible?
There's some damn. 3-2. 6-6.
Okay, 324. Don, what are you doing over there?
Yeah, 3-2-4 what?
324-0-2-1.
Oh, my. Yeah.
What do you think, sir? No, it's like going in together.
Yeah, we
Well,
doubled
that the 50-50 at the 50-50.
Well, he last was like $40. We was like, why don't we just like join forces for hard enough?
I think there's only a dozen cards left here, so
Good chance.
I don't know, 50-50 though, could go 50-50.
Here's cards, so we're just gonna take it.
We want to double our odds.
Well, while they search for the cards, does anyone have announcements? Okay, I have two. There's a board meeting right after this. Feel free to join us. And I want to remind us, on an email a few weeks ago about this. Marie Webster, who was the wife of a former Beavercreek Rotarian, John Webster, passed away on December 9th.
It was a joker.
$5.
You owe $5.
Hey, I'll cover.
Ruby Webster passed away on December 9th. She'll be having a visitation, there'll be a visitation for her, tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at St. Mark's Episcopal Church on Woodman Avenue, for whomever's interested. Open. Any other announcements? Okay, with that, I'd like to introduce our guest. Am I saying, is it Trion or Trion or Trion? Trion, heard, okay. This speaker is from Soy Medical Center. We have Daniel Trion. He's been with Soy, or Kettering Health, I should say, for a little over a decade now. Very involved in the community, 40 under 40 winner, numerous boards. He's on locally, I think, Princess Path is one of them. So all around great community member and here to help about his work, so. Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me here today. I appreciate it. It has been a fun year. I've had a chance to be here and work in Beavercreek community for about a year now. It has been a very, very busy year and enjoyed getting to connect with a few of you and looking forward to getting to know more of you over the course of the next few months and years. We have had, in short, we have had an incredible year at Soy Medical Center, incredible and challenge and incredible in terms of the way that the team has responded to some of that challenge. And it's a big thanks to our community here. We have a phenomenally supportive community of our medical center in a way that's just blows our mind. We've been grateful for the patient choice. I'm grateful for the support of our community partners, the city, and other organizations that support us very strongly. I was going to share just a little bit about Kettering Health and a little bit of background, and then answer some questions. Soy, the building there.
One of the things that I always like to share, I like to start with, is that people side. Across the areas that our team gets to work, we have about 2,000 employees. And to tell you the level of competence, compassion, sacrifice is just incredible. And hopefully none of you have to experience their care anytime soon. But one thing that I'm grateful for is our team is out and about. We don't shy away when people come up and say, hey, I was a patient at sewing, because for the most part, we believe our team has done a pretty good job. We do our best to try to celebrate them. And these are just a few of the people that if you do, hopefully visiting someone, not for yourself, but if you do stop into sewing, you'll meet some of them. I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I have, these are just a couple of months old. I have a little 2-year-old boy, and we have a little girl on the way. So a growing family. My daughter's birthday, our date is on my birthday, March 24th. So we'll see how close those line up. That would be kind of cool if that worked out. I'd like to talk a little bit about Kettering Health. Many of you probably have heard some of this before, but just in case, Kettering Health's namesake was Charles F. Kettering, and brought that spirit of innovation that we try to apply to what we do every day across the organization. He's one of the most prolific inventors of all time. And one of the cool things I like about him is he found problems and fixed them. And I know that sounds simple, but it's basically what he did. The electric car starter, he was starting the car in the rain and didn't like that. And said, this is a problem I can fix. My all-time favorite, and I don't like it when my wife hears this, he invented air conditioning, but the reason he did was because his wife, in his home, actually Kettering Health's headquarters is in the location of his old home. And the home actually had since burned down, but it was rebuilt very similar. And in that home, she had an organ installed. She loved playing the organ, but because the temperature and the humidity of the house would change so much, the organ was constantly out of tune. It was driving her nuts. And so her husband, trying to figure out how to fix that problem, invented Freon, basically the father of air conditioning and refrigeration, all because his wife wanted to play the organ. There's other stories about just different ways that he kind of found problems and solved them. And that mindset was established with Kettering Health when we first started. We are a faith-based organization and keep that innovation top of mind as much as possible. Significant growth over the time, especially the last 10 years or so. We have grown essentially as an organization, and to some extent, it's very that same kind of simple model of go where there's an opportunity or a problem and try to help solve it. And a lot of that is listening to communities, and we've had different communities reach out to us and share some of their needs. Not always perfect, but we have tried to do our best to come and meet those needs. Healthcare really continues to change as an industry. I'll share a little bit about more than the end. It's a very rapidly changing industry right now. Like I said, faith-based healthcare, one of the things that makes us unique is across our facilities. One of our goals is to make faith a tangible part of patient care if people want that. It is not forced on anyone, but our team is empowered to pray with or have other kind of faith connections with our fellow employees as well as our patients. And we believe that provides a very meaningful experience, and none of our patients really appreciate that environment. We have 14 medical centers, 120 outpatient facilities. Two of the things that we've done that are, I think, pretty unique. The first I'll mention is something called our Years Ahead program. What we're continuing to find is that the different groups of patients want different things, and they might need different resources around them. Most notably, if our goal is to keep patients out of the hospital. And increasingly, as we work in healthcare, the reason why a lot of hospital systems are nonprofit in my eyes is that our genuine goal is to have less and less patients in the hospital. Obviously, if there is healthcare to be provided, we'd like to earn the choice of the patient, but there's a lot of preventative work that needs to occur to support keeping people out of the hospital. One of the ways that we've done that is through a program called Years Ahead, and it is healthcare that's specifically designed around what a patient that is considered years ahead, which would be about 65 years and older. And there's some specific support that we can do in that group that may not be applicable to every patient, but has been very, very well received. We're continuing to add some of these facilities across the region. The other thing that we have is on-demand care. We certainly have an emergency department. There is certainly a need and a use for the emergency department, but there are a lot of things that don't warrant coming into emergency department for a patient, but also maybe they're not able to get into their primary care physician within an hour or two, or an evening or a weekend, and maybe we're not able to have it open. And so we've opened a number of these on-demand locations across our community just to provide that quick access to care for patients. Switching a little bit to sewing, we're celebrating 10-year anniversary this year. Actually, last year. I'm still forgetting the time. So this is technically year 11 that we're working on now, but I've been here in this community 10 years. And I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time with some of the the individuals that were key founders of the project, community members or Kettering Health board members or executives. And the interesting thing is that Soy Medical Center has exponentially beaten any projection, any thought of what it could possibly be. And a big part of that has been, like I said, the support of this community. Pretty much every single day, I say this kind of flippantly, but we have as many patients as we can take care of. And then we build more space, and then we have as many patients that we can take care of, and we continue. That's something that we hold sacred. We want to continue to earn that trust, but it's been just a response to the incredible support of the community. So over the course of the last 10 years, our organization has invested somewhere, inflation you can kind of estimate, but somewhere between $300 and $350 million specifically here in the Beavercreek community to provide healthcare for patients. And that's a whole range of programs. Obviously we have a trauma program here at Soy Medical Center. We also have very, very complex oncology programs, vascular surgery programs, a variety of services. We continue to build our medical staff and build our presence. Another thing that's, I think, important to note is we hired 500 employees in the last 12 months for Soy Medical Center and the areas around us. That is a big number for us. What we are facing, what I think many of you are probably hearing in just the labor market right now, is the labor market is just in a really volatile, interesting position. And I think one of the decisions we've had to consistently make over the course of the last year, really through COVID, is how do we make certain healthcare is not something that you can easily just turn to technology. You still need people. There are specific things that you need nurses and doctors and other team members to do. How do we continue to attract them to be a part of our team? At times, and I'll speak to this briefly, at times we have had and still do bring in some traveling nurses. You've probably heard a little bit about that. That comes with pluses and minuses. The minuses is just culturally trying to have someone that's going to be there for 4 weeks to get them up to speed on the way that we want to provide healthcare. This is part of Kettering Health. That can be kind of challenging. Obviously, the cost is prohibitive at times, but you're also weighing that with, when you have patients, you've got to provide staff to take care of them. So that's been probably the crisis mode. I'd say we've largely been in really coming through COVID. We had swells of COVID patients, and then as COVID kind of continued to move down, what I believe we see, and I think there's some literature to support, is we had a number of across our community that understandably were concerned about leaving the house, concerned about some of the preventative measures that are necessary. And I think there's a consequence to that. And so what we're seeing is this massive spike in just additional need for healthcare. And it's not just Soy Medical Center or Kettering Health. This is a national trend. You're seeing national spikes in volumes, national labor shortages, and lots of national struggles financially with hospital systems, just the place that we're in today's market. I think still a lot of optimism, but it's definitely been a challenge year, and a credit to our team members there at Soy. There were a couple of different rating agencies. There are tons of rating agencies that share a perspective on the performance of a hospital. There's a few that we like to look specifically at, and one of them is Leapfrog. The cool thing about Leapfrog is they take two pieces of information and meld it together. One is your measured performance, and the other is your documented processes. And the thought would be performance is how you did it, processes predict what you're going to do next. And so Leapfrog is a nationally recognized company, and we are blessed to have A from Leapfrog from a safety perspective. They continue to release those on a quarterly basis. We also have a great maternity program at Soy. Many of you may have heard or been a part of having babies delivered there, but we continue to win some awards. The team there does a phenomenal job. Great low intervention, low C-section rates, which is something that a lot of our patients look for. And have had some news here, Newsweek, US News and World Report, a few others have shared just different positive things. I believe Dan Donahue had a chance to come and speak to y'all a little bit back, and I apologize. I apologize. That was my mistake, or just something that came up in my life. But Dan was able to come and chat. We are proud partners of Air Force Base, the 80th Medical Group. They have done a lot of incredible things on our campus, and we have one of two programs in the country, and this one is unique. So both programs are unique with the same concept of embedding training of our military personnel in our hospital. So any given day, if you walk into Soy, or there are members of our military that are being in their readiness effort to be prepared to support troops, they do end up moved into some type of conflict or some type of need. The cool thing for that is, and I share this anytime I get to talk to anyone that's served, we benefit substantially because the culture within the military, what's trained there, has massively benefited the culture that we have at Soy. And so we've been just incredibly blessed by that. Continue to have a number of people that will retire and choose to join Soy permanently. And so it works good for us in that way as well. It's been a real benefit to our campus. Another thing that a lot of people know, but just to touch on, we actually train resident physicians here in Beavercreek. So we have 45 resident physicians every single year that rotate through. A number of them we're able to hire to stick around after they're done. Sometimes some want to move different places, and that's okay. But it's a very, very rapidly growing program. It's a program that's had a lot of success. And again, one of the things that's interesting, one of the things that's often challenging with resident training programs is having a base of patients that are willing to be provided, to be kind of learned on, if you will. And it's a very, very safe environment where you have a resident and overseeing physician. But in some of our primary care office buildings, like the one down the road here, we have just an influx of patients, which has made it possible to continue to grow that program in a positive way. I like this because it's public. This is Google reviews. So one of the things that I like to look at is Google reviews in my mind is just kind of it's something that anybody can do. It's not CMS, there's no letter sent. It's just somebody out of their heart said, I want to share something that happened at Soy Medical Center. If you're ever bored, if you want to just pop that in, as of last week, we were 4.6 stars, which we thought was pretty good. But you can read some of the comments and some of the underlying themes that you'll feel. And I think that's something that we like to remind our team. Our goal is to provide an environment where people feel like family. They feel like they were safe, taken great care of, and they were treated like family. And we hope to continue to see reviews like that, because that's feedback telling us whether we're doing things right or whether we're missing the mark. I get a lot of questions about the Bengals partnership, and I wanted to share just a couple things there. So we had this opportunity to kind of develop in a really awesome way for us as Bengals were looking for a partner. They have, as you can imagine, a substantial fan base in the greater Dayton area. And really, it was an opportunity for us as we look at kind of how we do marketing and promotion and build our partnerships, maybe to take the way we have some of our funds and reallocate it in a different way that would allow us to connect with the Bengals. And it's done a lot of really cool things for us. It's a 10-year partnership. It's one that continues to build. But as a part of that, we have different Bengals players and cheerleaders and mascots and other things that are involved here in schools with kids here in our community in Dayton partnered with us. The other thing that allows us to do, which I think is a really big deal, is from a marketing perspective, there are not a lot of brands across this region that grab the attention of the audience more than the Bengals, understandably so, especially how they're doing the last couple of years. It's been pretty fun to watch. We have found that in our research across the country, it is a phenomenally effective tool to help promote awareness, especially when it comes to screening and cancer screening, especially. There is a significant number of patients every single year they are diagnosed with cancer that if screening had occurred sooner, there would be a variety of additional treatment options and much better outcomes for those patients. And so as much as possible, we think one of our roles is to try to promote that screening awareness. And so far in that partnership with the Bengals, we've seen a significant uptick across the Dayton community of people that are receiving that screening as part of some of this awareness effort. So you can see we had the Crucial Catch game, which is an NFL wide. We got a chance to have Kettering Health celebrated there. And as you can imagine, we get to put our Bengals banners up in the parking lot. We have a lot of employees that are Browns fans, so there's some that aren't real happy about it, but other than that, it should be fine. So I know I'm going quick and I wanted time to answer questions, but I want to share just one special thing that's occurred at our campus. And I have permission from this patient and their family to share this story, and I'll kind of share my version of it. There's something that occurs in healthcare that is incredibly sad and also incredibly hopeful. And every time you get a driver's license, you're asked a question. You're asked, do you want to be an organ donor? And we try as much as possible when we do get to a point where a patient's in a place where they're not going to recover. There's a variety of clinical guidelines that are followed. It's a national standard. And we end up in a spot where we do something called an honor walk. And any employee, myself and others, we line the halls of the facility, and we take a moment to pay respects for that patient as their bed is pushed down to the OR for them to do organ procurement. And it's a sad time. It's a time when we try to wrap our hands around family members, loved ones that are there. And typically it is a decision that comes from those loved ones saying, hey, this is what we want to do to honor our father, our son, our mother. We had a patient in our facility named Terry. Terry had a heart attack in the shower at home. Her husband provided CPR for her, and she was taken to another facility, not Soin, was struggling, needed some more complex care, and was brought to our facility. And the basic diagnosis when she walked into our facility was something called death after cardiac arrest. And when they looked through the trend of that patient, there was no scientific reason to believe that Terry would recover. And the family understood that. A lot of conversations happened with different experts and consults across. And finally, we kind of got to a point where the realization was we're going to need to do an honor walk. Terry has been very vocal about how important it was to be a donor. And so I get a text message that says, hey, we're going to do an honor walk this afternoon. And they gave me a time and trying to clear my schedule to be there. I then got a text that I've never gotten before in my entire life, which was, hey, we're going to cancel the honor walk this afternoon. And for the most part, by the time you get to scheduling an honor walk for a patient, there's no change. That is going to play out. What's absolutely incredible is on the last possible assessment of Terry, through several days, almost 7-8 days of no response. Clearly, like this is not a physician of recovery. Outside consultants, every physician, every expert you'd ever asked saying, there's no way this is going to turn around. A physician came in to do one last assessment, as we would always want to do. And effectively, I'm kind of using more layman's terms, but effectively, the physician is pushing on pressure points to see if there's any type of reaction. And he pushed on a pressure point, and he couldn't tell if there's a reaction or not. And when you can't tell, you stop. And so now you go back out to the family and you sit down with the family and say, hey, we don't want to give you undue hope, but we don't think that we should move forward with, there may be a chance that your loved one could come back from this. I share this story because over the course of the last several years, the amount of death that's occurred at Soy Medical Center at hospitals all across this country has been much higher than our teams are accustomed to. Many of our ICU nurses over the course of a year might be in a place where they would see 2 or 3 of their patients pass away. It's not been uncommon over the last 18 months for an ICU nurse to have 3 patients pass away in one shift. And you just think of the emotional toll of every day coming in and trying to put your hands around a family and hands around a patient, and the outcome of the story feeling like again and again it was that same piece. One of the most special stories that our team had is ends, unfortunately, sadly, but we had a couple that have been married for 50 years, both had COVID. And this meeting's being recorded, so I'll say it anyways. One of the rules is we can't take patients and just kind of wheel them together in rooms. There's a lot of regulation around what's safe for patients. But you have this couple, their kids lived out of state, and they were both struggling, and they both said, we just want to go hold each other's hands. And so our team moves heaven and earth and does everything they can to probably find some gray areas to put them in a place where twice over the course of their care, we will them together and they could sit and hold hands. They could FaceTime their son together. And at the end of that, they passed away. And I share that because that's what our team members are feeling every single day. In spite of all the positive Google stars, our team members are feeling that sacrifice. And it was feeling like maybe that's what was going to happen with Terry as well. Except it's not what happened with Terry. The next day, Terry was a little bit better. The next day, a little bit better after that, to the point that she was able to be discharged from the hospital. She was able to enter into rehab. And a couple of weeks ago, she came back to our hospital to come and thank our teams. And we had several meetings. We had town hall meetings where we invite employees in, and wasn't a dry eye in the place as she went from person to person, hugging them and thanking them. The crazy thing about today's day and age with technology is her entire journey has been recorded on social media and recorded on with technology. So we have a video that I'm going to play for you briefly. It's not super long, and what you're going to see at the beginning of the video is her family saying goodbye. The family came in and said goodbye to Terry. And then you're going to see her basically come back to life. And so we'll play this just briefly. We don't need the audio, so it should be fine with just no. Doesn't seem to want to go. I'm sorry. You know, we can do this though. If you'll just go next, please. Thank you, sir. You'll have to trust me on the video, but you can also find it because I'm not the only one that has a copy of it. If any of you are on Instagram, it's This Worthy Journey on Instagram. Terry and her daughter Jules have done a lot of work. They're incredibly active in the faith community. They and our team really see this as a miracle, a very prayed for miracle. And the cool thing, it's been a real sign of faith, a sign of hope. Our teams now, when they see a patient that's struggling, say, instead of tying it to, I wonder if this is gonna be like a patient that may have passed away in the past, they're able to pause and say, I wonder if this is gonna be like Terry. I wonder if this is gonna be like Terry. And it's made a really massive impact for our facility. So as we look into next year, or this year, I guess, we are as an organization, the process of our board is in the process of selecting our next chief executive officer. Fred Mancher was at the helm for a long time and announced his retirement at the end of last year. There's a lot of just industry turmoil and change in healthcare right now. And I think at the core of it is a need that all of us are working towards in our own ways, whether it be CMS or insurance companies, or a need to continue to put mechanisms in place that help keep people out of the hospital, provide access closer to home, diminish the amount of unnecessary ambulance runs, the unnecessary ED visits. There's a lot of things that we can do and increase screening. The more screening we do, the more we can keep people out of hospitals. And so while we do have a beautiful building here and we're grateful for the patient choice, a lot of what we're working on every day is A, operationalizing that, but B, trying to put that out of business to some extent, trying to continue to change what happens in healthcare across the community. We play a very small part. There's a lot of big partners that play massive roles in that we're very grateful for. I personally think it'll be a challenging couple of years for healthcare, but I think the change that we're going to see is going to be really cool as we head into maybe 4 or 5 years from now. So that's kind of a quick spiel. I wanted to have time to answer any questions or share anything y'all may want me to share. Yes, sir.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I was at that Bengals game when you guys did that. It was very moving. What I thought was neat was the people in the crowd that all had signs that they were survivors as well that went through the network as well. So that was, it was right on.
Thank you. Yeah, when I was there as well, and there was a little girl that came and rang the I'm cancer free bell, and the little 9-year-old girl ringing that bell, it's hard not to get a little choked up watching that. So they knew what we were doing. They were playing with our emotions. The music was going, and then she came up and she just got us all. So yes, sir.
How much more space is available in this line for expansion 13 acre?
Yeah, so we have some good acreage within the building. We have the ability to build out 4 additional ORs, and we have 2 floors that we call shell floors. So basically, we built a floor, but there's nothing built out inside of it. We finished one of those shell floors in 2022. We added some additional patient beds. We're continuing kind of on our staffing journey. Part of my role is to help strategically figure out how to fill those remaining floors and then eventually fill the remaining acres. So we're working on that. And I don't have a specific timeline at the moment. A lot of it has, but the ability to continue to grow, bear with me for a second. From a healthcare perspective, anywhere you go, you never want to be as a patient, you never want to be a unicorn. You don't want to be the one physiotomy that facility has done over the course of the last year. You want to be one of many. And so to some extent, scale does dictate a little bit of what we can build. But what we have seen is as patients choose us, we will work hard to build services to match what they choose. And one of the more recent additions that we've had here actually is we've developed a very robust, very complex vascular surgery program. And that's been over the course of this year. So before this year, if you were a vascular surgery patient, you would have gone somewhere else across the community. And there's good places providing care. But we thought that we had a number of patients that wanted to stay here to provide that care and had the chance to kind of work with our physicians to build that program. That'll eventually probably take over one of those shelled ORs that we'll need to build out.
Present impact of COVID on Soin. Do you have a lot of COVID patients in that hospital now?
Not a ton, and not a ton of COVID patients where COVID is the primary issue, primary diagnosis. So a lot of times we're finding incidental findings. Somebody will have some other issue come in. As a part of it, we're doing testing and they'll be COVID positive. So we definitely see some swells up and down, but it really has leveled out. It's not been the chief course of concern for us the last 6-8 months. There's been a variety of things. Actually, frankly, flu's been rough. That's really hit everybody pretty hard.
RSV.
RSV, I mean, and it's, especially with the children's hospitals, my colleagues over the children's hospitals, they've been inundated for months on end. Definitely need a lot of prayer and support there because they've had a lot of work. Yes, sir.
Question on this traveling nurse thing. I'm asking for a selfish reason. Actually, we have an investor, a trading, and he is one who places these traveling nurses.
Yes.
And he has seen his income go from 100,000 a year to, he just cleared 1.2 million. Is this something that's going to continue on for the foreseeable future?
And yes and no, it's already declining. So I think probably, different states across the country have taken different approaches to what traveling means. And so there are some places where you have to travel a certain distance away. Currently in Ohio, I don't think we have something exactly like that. It has created a bit of a dynamic where places that are desperate will put their hand up and say, I'll pay a bunch of money for nurses. And then that nurse leaves, it creates another place that's desperate. The next person that's desperate say, I'll pay more than that. And it kind of creates this revolving cycle where at some points at peak prices, we have nurses getting paid similar amounts to physicians that are working shifts in our hospital. And that, as you can imagine, economically just isn't sustainable. What we're starting to see across the country, in my eyes at least, and we're definitely seeing it here. So at its height, I can speak to Soin specifically. We had 90 traveling nurses in our facility 6 months ago. And beyond financial, just culturally, nothing, they're very talented, very trained people, but to come in, show up somewhere for 3 weeks or 6 weeks and really fit in and do great work and leave is a challenging thing to ask people to do. What we're seeing is it's starting to go down. So we're down to about 15 traveling nurses at Soin now. And I think as you see that, the supply demand equilibrium begins to change and the price point begins to drop down. And that probably would impact somebody that's running a staffing agency. So that's not the way. There's always going to be a need for it. But what I think the hospitals are feeling across the country. My joke is if you can find a hospital that's making money across the country, tell me, I'll drive out there today. We're all feeling that kind of breaking point. And this is one of the areas we have to touch. Yes, sir.
Do you guys team up with like local colleges to kind of help out with that? Like, local colleges that you guys kind of, when they graduate, that, they come to Soin, to be, an RN or, I mean, did you do stuff like that?
You certainly could add more if you have ideas or contacts on all ears. We have tried to do extensive work. So first, Kettering Health Network is something called Kettering College that focuses in training allied health professionals. But we have partnerships with Wright State, partnerships with Sinclair. Actually, we had a number of the senior leadership of Sinclair at Soin Medical Center last week talking about ways in which we can work together. The reality is that a lot of industries with the labor shortage, a lot of industries are trying to turn to technology. There's only so much we can do with technology in healthcare. And so there's just going to be a need. So I love to finish after if you have an idea or somebody to connect us with as across Kettering Health as a whole, don't quote me on this number, but I believe in order to maintain patient care, we need something around 1,400 nurses over the course of the next year. And so it is just it's an astronomical number that it's not unique to us. I would imagine if any of the other healthcare providers in the region were here, they'd say the same thing. Yes, sir.
I understand Cedarville University has a good nursing program. No, I'll look at them.
Yes, ma'am.
We hear a lot about the uninsured,
Yes.
and so how does that impact?
So, in my mind, as a faith-based organization, there's kind of jokingly the concept of margin and mission. And there are some things that we do that do try to generate a financial margin. That margin is always then moved into some type of a further growth or mission effort. I don't have specific numbers with you, but a substantial portion of the patients that we provide care for probably would be categorized in that underserved community. And that's a lot of what I'm talking about with that change of healthcare. So I'll tell you something cool that we have that maybe wasn't in place as little as 2 years ago. A lot of times, I don't want to speak for the fire department here locally. In another community, I used to get to do ride-alongs with the fire department just to experience what they experience as they interact with community and with patients in hospital. And a number of times you have a patient where the 15th, I'm making this up, the 15th of every month, so-and-so's medication would run out and the fire department would get a call. We have to have an ability to be able to mail pharmacy, can't do narcotics obviously, but we can actually mail drugs directly to people's home. We can mail it in 1 week increments. There's a lot of things that we can start doing. I think ultimately that underserved piece is kind of linking arms with different partners across the community because you think about what's necessary to really provide for that community. There's a book by Dan Heath called Upstream. Many of you may have heard of it, but the basic reason why he named the book Upstream is kind of this funny, fake hypothetical of if you and I were sitting on the side of a river and we saw a child floating down the river aimlessly, we jump in and pull the child out. Another one came, we jump in and pull it out. And eventually in this story, a group of people began to build safety nets and pulley systems and ways to make certain that no child fell past as they kept flowing down the river. And finally, somebody stopped, probably would be you, and say, "Hey, let's go upstream and figure out who's throwing killed kids into the water." And so, to some extent, what healthcare is going to need to do is link arms more and more with school systems, with health departments, with fire and police departments, with social support systems, to try to do as many upstream things as possible, so that instead of being a safety net, we're actually trying to prevent that safety net from being needed. It's very theoretical, and there's a lot of work necessary that may not tie to your question, but it's something I'm passionate about.
Is there an uncompensated care mechanism in Greene County? When I was a county commissioner on Montgomery County, they actually had an uncompensated care levy. And the hospitals would access that to pay for clients that couldn't pay their bill.
There are a variety of programs that try to support on the uncompensated space, including on the hospital side. So there's a number of situations where, again, being a faith-based nonprofit organization, it just doesn't make sense for us to be punitive about what a patient may cost.
All right.
So we're doing a lot of things where every year we produce a report that's a public annual report about how many tens of millions, typically hundreds of millions of dollars worth of uncompensated care we're providing. And then there are different outlets that do help us offset that in partial ways, which are very helpful.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you so much for the chance to be here today. I appreciate it.
I would say, I think I do speak on behalf of the club and the community when I say that swine's great. I know I spent time there for reasons. Sometimes I didn't want to be there. Sometimes I did want to be there, and it's always been really good. And March 24th is a wonderful date. My son was born March 24th at swine. And I always say I'm amazed. It was a very eye-opening moment for me when I learned that it's really not doctors involved in the process of childbirth. And I mean, I think the doctor walked in, like grabbed the baby out, was like, "Great job." It was just nurses the rest of the time. The funds that we had to nurse the whole shift, and she was getting off at 7, and it was like 6:15. She looked at my wife, she's like, "You have 45 minutes to give birth to the child. I'm see this child before I get on." And Hunter was born at 7 on the nose. I'm not kidding. It was a very positive experience for us. So thank you for all you do over there. We have a book dedication. Beth dropped us off. She couldn't be here today. David got her out, but she did drop it off. The Galaxy Needs You, and he's already signed it. So we will give that to the Beavercreek Library and your staff. So thank you so much. I need greeters for next week. So if you're feeling very frisky and you want to show up a few minutes early and greet your fellow Rotarians, please let me know. We need to. Next week's speaker is Jim Brown, a gentleman that's been associated with Wright State Athletics for a couple of years or more. So come listen to him. Is there anything else for the good of the club?
Yeah.
Saturday at Wright State, our club, I think, and Fairborn are hosting the exchange student weekend. They go out to the airport, the National Museum of the United States Air Force for a tour. Then they'll have dinner at the famous Golden Corral, and then go to the Nutter Center to watch Wright State flag. And our club contributes half the money. I think we're going to discuss, maybe discussing it more, but I think it's in the budget. So if you're interested, let me know, I guess, because I guess I'm right now the person, maybe Beth, she may be taking over for that. I don't know. We could maybe get tickets for the game. Extra tickets for the game are $7 to sit with the exchange students. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll let the guy buying the tickets know to get you extra tickets.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. 2 more programs. We're meeting right after this. And I'm going to say again, Ruby Webster's visitations tomorrow from 10 to 11:30 at St. Mark's Episcopal Church on Woodman Avenue. So with that, sir, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody have a great
We all have a one, please try to
Thank you. Perfect. One down. All right.